Last month, I said that Apple is finally starting to listen. With the release of iOS 26 and the new liquid glass design aesthetic, Apple showed that they are willing to take a step and make a bold change without it being strictly necessary. Over the last 4 years, to me at least, it has seemed that Apple makes changes based on a spreadsheet. What is the minimum amount of features and changes that we can make to sell the most units? And that seems to be the thought process behind, frankly, most of the products that they announce these days. But with iOS 26, they changed the game. But of course, that's not going to cut it to get the world's largest company back on top of the innovation ladder. Over the past several months, we've learned more and more about the controversial new design for the iPhone 17, 17 Pro, and all new 17 Air. But the reason that I say that this is a test is because Apple has shown a lot of stagnation in the last couple of years, and if we're to believe that this is still a world leader in technology and innovation, you kind of can't go 5 years without redesigning your flagship product, the iPhone. But more recently, we've heard rumors of the so-called iPhone 20 set for release in 2027 that could feature an absolutely massive redesign. Now, my good buddy Sam from Apple Track has rendered this thing out and it looks absolutely insane. But the thing is, that's a 2027 iPhone. We see this time and time again when the rumor mill starts to churn in October. We see all of these exciting new features coming out. For example, the iPhone 17 was supposed to feature this anti-reflective coating on the display that would make it more scratch resistant, less smudge prone, and easier to see in broad daylight. But just a couple of weeks ago, we heard, turns out that's not going to happen. They couldn't manufacture it at scale. And that seems to be the trend. We hear a bunch of exciting things, and then a couple months later, we hear they're either not going to happen, they're going to come out in like 2 or 3 years, or we just never hear anything again. So let's discuss what Apple can do this year to make it clear that the iPhone has a future, right after a word from today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Dreamy and their new Z1 Pro robotic pool cleaner, the world's first robotic cleaner with a triple surround fusion perception system. Z1 uses a combination of sensors to intelligently map, route plan, and navigate your pool while optimizing for certain zones and dynamically avoiding obstacles. It's suitable for any pool shape and it can clean on concrete, fiberglass, tile, or vinyl. And it comes with a super easy to use poolside remote controller that uses Li-Fi technology to create a strong underwater connection in both fresh and saltwater pools. It also features manual navigation input and task controls. With dual brushless motors, Z1 can deliver insane amounts of suction to effortlessly eliminate leaves, dirt, algae, and other debris from your pool. Look what it found in just a couple minutes. And with an impressive 4-hour runtime thanks to a 9600 mAh battery, 360-degree coverage for all pool types, and precise edge cleaning, Dreamy Z1 is the ultimate pool companion. So to learn more about Z1, check out the link in the description down below. A big thanks to Dreamy for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to it. So I think that the last 3 generations of iPhone in particular really demonstrate the problem that Apple has these days in making the iPhone feel innovative and exciting. So if we take the iPhone 14 Pro, that was where we got the dynamic island. And quite frankly, I think that was a great feature. We also got the 48 megapixel camera, which again is a fantastic feature that a lot of people really enjoy. Fast forward to the iPhone 15 Pro, and we got, I guess, the closest thing to a redesign that you could say in recent years, which was the shift to USB-C and the new titanium design. And again, people really liked that design, but it didn't feel all that different from the 14 Pro. Fast forward again to last September, the iPhone 16 Pro comes out and we get slightly larger display sizes, thinner bezels, better battery life, and of course everybody's favorite feature in the world, camera control. But if you look at each of those iPhones individually, they all have one major change: dynamic island, titanium, Apple Intelligence. But each of those features on their own, they don't seem particularly groundbreaking. But imagine if Apple did them all at once. Imagine if the iPhone 16 Pro had the dynamic island, 48 megapixel camera, a new design with larger displays and thinner bezels and titanium and USB-C and Apple Intelligence and the camera control and the action button all at the same time. well, it would have been a very different story. Even though the phone still doesn't look that different from like a 13 Pro, it would have had a bunch of great new features that would have had people super excited. The problem is, when you're a company like Apple and you need to make a new phone every year, you can't really do that much all at once, because then you're going to create a super cycle. The next year is going to be twice as hard, because how are you going to top that? And then sales are going to go down, your stock price is going to tank, your investors are going to get pissed, and you end up in a whole world of trouble. And that's the problem with modern tech companies. They're no longer in the growth stage. They have reached maturity in a lot of these cases. And honestly, smartphones are kind of in their final form. In the 2000s, smartphones came in every shape under the sun. But then Apple came out with the rectangle in 07, and for the past 18 years, everyone's been doing rectangle. Sure, some of them fold in half from the middle or the side, but they're all rectangle. So how much can you really do to change the design of a rectangle? And look, frankly, I don't know. I don't know what Apple could do to make the iPhone feel more exciting again. But if we rewind about 10 years to when the iPhone 6S came out, that wasn't an exciting phone at all. But we all kind of knew that Apple wasn't going to do an exciting phone every single year, because we knew that every few years they would. And I remember the feeling in 2016 when Apple did a fairly minor update for the iPhone 7, and a lot of people started saying, well, the iPhone feels a little bit stale, a little bit boring. Well, guess what? The next year was the iPhone 10, one of the most insane updates that Apple has ever released. And so we all kind of had that assumption in the back of our mind that even if the iPhone got a little bit stale for a year or two, Apple would always come back with something exciting. The problem is now the timescale has shifted significantly, and we're finding that every year features get more and more underwhelming or half-baked, and the time that we have to wait for something exciting gets longer and longer and longer. We never got an iPhone Ultra. We never got an iPhone Fold. It's supposedly still in the works, and all the while we have 5 years of iPhones that look pretty much the same, and it could be as much as 7, unless you count the camera bar as a radical redesign, which I don't. And I mean, look, as somebody who's interested in tech and who follows the rumors, things have gotten just a little bit depressing. I mean, take a look at this rumor that just came out a couple of days ago for the iPhone 17 Pro. They're moving the logo down on the back of the phone. But what killed me is that every single Apple News site covered this story. Like, this is the bottom of the barrel, folks, and we're scraping it. Then there's the topic of the iPhone Air. This, I think, it has the potential to be a really interesting product segment. It's going to be a radically thin device at just 5.5 millimeters. This kind of feels like the old Apple, and in fact, while the Pros seem to be a little bit pedestrian and boring, the Air has a lot of promise. But just like I said earlier, as we heard about this iPhone Air and people got excited, slowly the rumors started chipping away at that excitement. First, we learned that it was only going to have a single camera, meaning for people like me who use the iPhone Pro cameras all the time, it's just a non-starter. We're not going to be able to use that phone. We then learned that it's only going to have a single speaker in the earpiece, no stereo speaker on the bottom. And in a day and age where people are scrolling TikTok and Instagram Reels for hours and hours a day, the built-in speaker is more important than it's ever been, and Apple's now just removing it. And then the cherry on top, the battery life. We all thought, well, hey, look, if Apple's going to make this ultra-thin phone, battery had better be a top priority, and we heard that it was going to be pretty good. But now we're hearing that only about 60% of users are going to be able to make it through a full day on a charge, and their band-aid for this terrible battery life is a case with a big old battery in it. So they really just said, hey, here's the thinnest phone in the world, but if you want to actually use it, you got to make it thicker. What the are we talking about? It just makes it hard to root for the company and get super excited about their releases when every single year we have this sort of like, hey, they might be doing something cool. Oh, it's going to be 3 years from now. Oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, it's actually not going to be that interesting. And then the release comes around and look, they haven't released a bad phone. The 16 Pro, I think, was very boring, but it wasn't bad, right? The camera control, take it or leave it. It's not the most useful feature, but it's there. We've got bigger screens, better battery life. I don't complain about that. And I really like the desert titanium color. But that's not really enough to get me excited, right? I'll get the phone. I review phones. That's what I do. But frankly, since the WWDC announcement, I've been using the betas on my 15 Pro Max, and I don't really notice a difference. I even have multiple friends who have actually downgraded because they literally couldn't be bothered. I had a very good friend in college who bought the iPhone 11 Pro when that came out. He kept it for about 4 years, and then when I think that would have been the 14 Pro came out, and he kind of just went, it's okay, but it's kind of expensive and it doesn't seem all that different. So we ended up just buying a regular iPhone 13 on a discount. And that's basically the story of where Apple is going these days. People are buying based on price or color availability or whatever deal they can get through their carrier because frankly, they don't care. And look, I understand that most people don't care about their phone, and that's okay. But if you want people to get excited about your brand, you have to take care of its image. And I think that's Apple's biggest problem right now. They're coasting on a reputation that's been built up over the past 30, 40, 50 years of being a leader in innovation and making the world a better or different place with their products. That's the reputation that Apple has had. And the problem is right now they're kind of spending that reputation. They're using this history of positive brand association, and they're kind of getting away with some lackluster or lazy product design, in my opinion. But the problem is if you spend your brand value, it's kind of a one-way street. You can't get it back as easily as you've sent it away. I'm a car guy. You guys probably know that. I have another channel where I do car content. And so the best analogy that I can come up with is brands like Maserati or Jaguar, or honestly even Cadillac. These were all prestigious luxury brands who got perhaps a little complacent, let the quality go down, had some part sharing with other manufacturers. Maserati used to be a prestigious name in the automotive world, and now everyone kind of looks at it as a joke. And I'm not saying that Apple is Maserati, but they could be if they're not careful. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on the topic. Let me know down below if you're excited for this year's iPhone release or if you think Apple's kind of losing steam. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.